The anime opens with the Demon King summoning what are said to be the four strongest generals in his demon army. The first is Aladora, the warrior of hell. The second is Silid, the grand mage of storms. The third is Gnome, the earth fortress. Lastly, there is a newly appointed general who appears shocked and bewildered by his sudden arrival, Fuchimura, the director of operations, who turns out to be the protagonist of the story. The scene shifts to Uchimura's past. He was once a simple office worker, full of hope and ambition to achieve great success. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. His colleagues were promoted one after another while he remained overlooked and unappreciated. A turning point came when his manager transferred him overseas to a factory still under construction, an infamous location known as a graveyard for failures. Fuchimura moved to the new town with a glimmer of hope. When he reached out to his manager for help, he was met with anger and accusations of wasting company resources. Despite this, Fuchimura refused to give up. Determined to succeed, he poured all his efforts into revitalizing the factory, doing everything himself from organizing to cleaning and more. Over time, his hard work paid off. The workers began to respect and support him, and the factory started to thrive. Just when things were finally improving, an unexpected blow came. His manager decided to transfer him to another factory in a different country. Devastated, Uchimura questioned the purpose of his efforts. One day, while lost in thought on the street, a motorcycle suddenly hit him from behind. In that moment, he found himself transported to the realm of the Demon King. At first, Uchimura believed he had landed in hell. The Demon King welcomed him warmly, calling him by name. Shocked, Uchimura asked how the Demon King knew his name. The Demon King confidently replied, "Of course I know you, I summoned you here." He explained that after reviewing Uchimura's professional history, he was certain Uchimura was the perfect candidate to become the fourth general in his army. But Uchimura, still conflicted, responded that joining the Demon King's army sounded like a descent into the depths of the underworld. However, the Demon King interrupted, assuring him, "I'll provide you with all the benefits and perks you could ask for. You'll have complete freedom to choose anyone you want to work under you, and your salary will match that of top executives in your world." Uchimura was taken aback by the offer, struggling to process what he was hearing. The Demon King added, "If you're not satisfied, I'll send you back to your world." Relieved by the Demon King's respect for his autonomy, Uchimura began to reconsider. The other generals, however, protested. They voiced their disbelief that a weak human like Uchimura could ever become a general in the demon army. Uchimura thought to himself that they were probably right, but the Demon King remained unfazed, declaring, "If all of you object, then we'll put him to the test." Uchimura was stunned. The Demon King explained, "If he passes the test, none of you will have any grounds to object." Mandora, driven by her fascination with the supernatural powers of individuals from another world, decided to test these claims herself. She launched a devastating attack on Uchimura. Before her attack could land, the Demon King intervened, halting her assault. When Mandora demanded an explanation for his interference, he calmly pointed out her tendency to lose control when angered. He directed her attention to Uchimura, who had collapsed from the overwhelming shock of the incident. The onlookers, stunned by the scene, expressed disbelief, noting that Uchimura was nothing more than an ordinary human. The Demon King affirmed this fact, prompting Mandora to question how someone so ordinary could hold the position of one of his generals. Despite her objections, the Demon King stood by his decision, explaining that Uchimura's presence in the army was deliberate. The Demon King acknowledged the internal challenges within his forces, but emphasized that Uchimura's intelligence and strategic thinking were precisely what the army needed. The Demon King revealed that Uchimura's first test would be to secure an agreement with the Minotaur army. This revelation left Uchimura stunned, comparing the challenge to the difficulty of a high-stakes job interview. The Demon King informed Uchimura that he could turn to Mandora for assistance if needed and left him to face the daunting task ahead. Mandora interrupted his thoughts, announcing their arrival at their destination, a massive door, which she identified as the entrance to the Minotaur leader's chamber. As the door creaked open, Uchimura was overwhelmed by fear at the sight of the towering Minotaur leader. The leader's imposing figure made Uchimura doubt whether peaceful negotiation was even possible. Sensing his hesitation, Mandora offered to help, sharing some tips on negotiation. Uchimura felt a brief sense of relief, but it quickly evaporated as her abrasive approach immediately angered the Minotaur leader. Observing the chaos, Uchimura silently concluded that Mandora was ill-suited for diplomacy. After leaving the chamber, Mandora explained that the negotiations had initially been going well but collapsed when the leader outright rejected the proposed conditions. She admitted to multiple failed attempts to negotiate in the past and, in her frustration, blamed the Minotaur leader for being unreasonable. Turning to Uchimura, she declared it was now his turn to handle the negotiations, leaving him speechless and unsure of how to proceed. Standing alone, Uchimura questioned how he could possibly persuade such an intimidating creature. In his uncertainty, a memory surfaced of difficult negotiations he had faced in his previous life. During challenging times, he would retreat to a quiet tavern to clear his mind and find clarity. Recalling how he had always managed to overcome obstacles, he steadied himself, drawing upon his past experiences and resolving to succeed in the negotiations, no matter what lay ahead. The focus shifted to the Demon King, where Mandora provided an update on Uchimura's situation. The Demon King, maintaining his composure, expressed confidence in waiting to see how Uchimura's negotiations would unfold. Later, Mandora stumbled upon Uchimura surrounded by piles of trash, rummaging through the mess as requested by the Minotaur leader. Several filled bags sat neatly beside him. She remarked on how quickly he had taken control of the negotiations. The following day, Uchimura entered the Minotaur leader's chamber. Mandora, unable to suppress her curiosity, decided to check on the progress. To her surprise, the room was filled with heaps of the Minotaur leader's trash, but neither Uchimura nor the leader was present. Confused, she speculated that the negotiations might have failed, prompting the leader to leave. At that moment, Uchimura appeared calmly, explaining that the Minotaur leader was with the Demon King finalizing the agreement. Mandora, baffled, demanded to know what had happened. Uchimura revealed that the agreement had been completed the previous day. Stunned, Mandora questioned how he managed to strike a deal with someone so notoriously stubborn in just one day. Uchimura explained to her that she had misunderstood the situation. She believed the Minotaur leader was rejecting the negotiations, but in reality, the negotiations were progressing smoothly. The issue, he said, was the negotiation approach. He shared an experience from his past with a client who initially rejected everything, but later agreed once trust was established through clear, passionate, and emotionally driven explanations of the terms. Uchimura pointed out that the failure in Mandora's negotiations stemmed from the Minotaur leader not understanding the terms or the purpose of the negotiations. He also highlighted that the straw requested by the leader was an important gesture of goodwill in their culture, as the Minotaurs used straw to accommodate guests, sleeping on it to avoid overcrowding their rooms with furniture. The leader had been frustrated because he couldn't sleep comfortably on the ground. Hearing this, Mandora felt a pang of regret, realizing that the failure had been due to her inability to understand the Minotaur leader. However, the Minotaur leader interrupted, admitting that the fault was mutual. He hadn't understood her negotiation style either and apologized to her. They shook hands, reconciling their differences. The Minotaur leader then expressed gratitude to Uchimura, thanking him for making the agreement possible. At that moment, the Demon King appeared and praised Uchimura's unique talent for identifying unnoticed problems and resolving them effectively. He then formally welcomed Uchimura as a general in his army, declaring that no one could doubt his abilities after the success of this test. He turned to Mandora, who, though reluctant, finally agreed with the decision. The Demon King then asked Uchimura to extend his hand. He presented him with an emblem symbolizing his status as one of the 4 generals. After putting it on, Uchimura was instructed by the Demon King to always act decisively and do what he believed was right without hesitation. Uchimura felt a deep sense of pride and pledged to fulfill his role with dedication. Mandora, in her usual sharp tone, asked Uchimura to raise his hand. When he seemed confused, she scolded him and explained that this was their way of welcoming new comrades. She then declared that she hadn't fully acknowledged him yet and demanded that he prove himself further by succeeding in more negotiations. The Demon King concluded by stating that the army was still incomplete and had many issues to address. However, Takumi is unexpectedly summoned to another world, finding himself standing before the goddess Nolan. However, the first thing she does is apologize sincerely, explaining that it was all a huge mistake. When the summoning spell is cast, it randomly selects individuals from Earth to become heroes in the new world. Takumi's life had been going well, and he was never meant to be summoned, but an error during the spell dragged him here along with the others. The mistake is blamed on the Holy Sidonia Empire, who recklessly activated the forbidden summoning spell. Because of this, Takumi was not sent to Sidonia like the other heroes, but instead to Nolan. Takumi asks Nolan if she can send him back to Earth, given that he was brought here by mistake. Unfortunately, Nolan explains that she cannot. Out of frustration over Sidonia's actions, Nolan had erased the summoning spell from the world's magic laws, making it impossible for anyone to move between worlds anymore. Worse yet, Takumi's original body had perished in the process, leaving him as a disembodied spirit. Panicking at the realization that he's a ghost, Takumi is reassured by Nolan that she has a plan. While she can't send him back, she can give him a new body and allow him to become a citizen of this world. As an apology, Nolan also offers him her blessing to make his new life easier. Takumi, with little choice, agrees to be reborn in this world, which pleases Nolan. She then instructs him to open his status screen to review his new life. Takumi is surprised to find that Nolan has given him a 17-year-old body, even though he's actually 40 years old. Nolan brushes off his concerns about the minor details and urges him to choose a job class. Takumi, not wanting to fight, opts for a production-based job rather than a combat class. Nolan then implants the job into his soul, along with several other beneficial blessings. She sends him on his way, forgetting to provide him with any tutorials. Takumi crashes into a forest upon his rebirth, and after picking himself up, checks his reflection in a nearby river. He's now a completely different person, with no memory of his old body. Inside the bag Nolan left for him, Takumi finds food rations and money, ensuring that he won't starve. His status screen reveals that Nolan has equipped him with many useful skills, including elemental magic. Curious, Takumi tests out his new powers by forming a water ball in his hand. He quickly learns that all the elements work in the same way, and he can control them with ease. Now that he understands his magic, Takumi decides to head to the nearest village. On his way, Takumi stumbles across a stick lying in the path. Using his appraisal skill, he identifies it as Trent wood, a material useful for crafting magic staves and spears. Deciding to try out his crafting abilities, he uses his skills to make a spear. He then spends the next hour gathering useful plants nearby, filling his item box with the plants when he realizes they won't fit in his bag. Suddenly, a young girl runs toward him, calling for help. She explains that a monster is chasing her, and Takumi soon sees a massive horned rabbit charging toward them. In a panic, Takumi attempts to defend himself, but in an accidental twist of fate, he ends up stabbing the rabbit in the head, killing it instantly. Surprised by his victory, Takumi realizes it was due to luck, not skill. As a result of the encounter, Takumi gains the job title of Warrior, a class he didn't want. After ensuring the girl Molly is unharmed, Takumi learns she was out gathering herbs where she wandered too far from the village. Takumi, feeling it would be wasteful to leave it behind, stashes the rabbit in his item box. Realizing too late that he revealed his ability, he decides there's no turning back. As they approach the village, the other summoned heroes are arriving at Sidonia. Confused and disoriented, they are introduced to Empress Elizabeth, who tells them they have been summoned to save the world. However, one of the heroes, Akana, feels instinctively that Elizabeth cannot be trusted, as her gut tells her the Empress is deceptive. Meanwhile, Takumi and Molly arrive at the village where her parents, Banga and Martha, express gratitude for Takumi's help. Takumi asks if he can stay in the village for a while, as he has nowhere else to go. The couple welcomes him but explains that there is no inn in the village. However, they suggest building him a house, and soon all the villagers gather to start construction. Takumi uses his earth magic to flatten the ground, but using such a large-scale spell drains his mana. The villagers are amazed at his power, and the next morning his house is completed, thanks to his skills in carpentry, blacksmithing, and sewing. Takumi then decides to practice alchemy using ores he gathered to extract metal. He successfully turns iron ore into usable material, but finds that the process consumes a lot of mana, leading him to nearly pass out. He's saved by Martha and Banga, who give him a recovery potion. Despite their warnings, Takumi continues to experiment with his alchemy skills, eventually making useful tools and weapons. Later, Takumi asks Banga for some basic potions to use as templates for his own creations. After making his own potions with herbs he collected, he compares them to Banga's potions. Takumi's version appears more magical, but unsure of its effects, he tests it by building poison tolerance, consuming the potion until he nearly dies, then healing himself. One day, Takumi encounters a massive boar and a poison spider. The boar charges at him, and despite his attempts to defend himself with magic and a spear, nothing works. Just as he's about to be overrun, the spider intervenes, attacking the boar. Takumi, seeing the opportunity, uses alchemy to break down the boar's head, defeating it. The spider is injured, but Takumi heals it, and it ends up becoming his pet, which he names Maple. Returning to the village, Takumi shows off the giant boar and his new pet spider. The villagers are amazed, especially by the fact that he managed to tame such a dangerous creature. Takumi suggests they share the boar meat since it's too much for him to eat alone, and a feast is held in his honor. Banga brings him the valuable leftovers, which can be sold for money in the nearest city, Bolton. Takumi decides that his next destination will be Bolton. Meanwhile, Nolan is quietly pleased to see Takumi evolving, but her assistant questions her true intentions. After all, she gave Takumi a special body, her blessings, and, most importantly, sent him 1 year into the past, before the Sidonia Empire activated its spell. Yet Nolan simply notes that there wasn't any specific reason. The next morning, Takumi wakes up to find himself trapped in a web. He tells Maple, the spider girl, to apologize, but she says she's lonely because he's always busy with work. Feeling guilty, Takumi decides to take a break and spend some time playing with her. However, they're interrupted by Martha, who's stunned by the sight. He quickly reassures her that Maple wasn't trying to eat him, but Martha is more interested in the spider silk. We learn that spider silk is incredibly rare and is typically used to make clothes for nobles. Martha needs Maple to spin a more elastic version of the silk, and although Takumi doubts she'll cooperate, Maple surprises them by doing exactly what Martha asked. Takumi reminds Maple of their promise to play together, but she declines, saying she's now busy, so he heads off to complete his own tasks. It's been a month since he arrived in the village, village, and although he's grown close to everyone, he knows it's time to move to a bigger city to pursue alchemy. But he's unsure how to break the news to everyone who has been so kind to him. Boone presents Takumi with a new set of armor and even offers to fix his shoes, joking that they'll help him kick harder. Takumi laughs, reminding them he's just an alchemist. Bonga arrives as well, and Boone tells Takumi that it'll be lonely without him, but they all understand that he needs to move forward. Bonga mentions that a merchant named Paypek will soon be arriving, and that travel arrangements have already been made for Takumi to go with him. Deeply grateful, Takumi thanks them. Later, Takumi runs into Martha, who's carrying parts of a horned rabbit. Although the meat tastes great, she says it has to be discarded due to a lack of proper facilities. Takumi offers to purify it with his magic, surprising her with the revelation that he can use light magic. She urges him to keep it a secret. Those who can use light magic are rare, and even mid-level users can earn a fortune. Over the next few days, Takumi quietly helps develop the village using his powers, wanting to give back before he leaves. Eventually, Paypek arrives, surprised by the village's rapid development. Bonga introduces him to Takumi, and before they leave, he gives Bonga a healing potion, one of 100 he left at Takumi's home. Martha and the villagers gather to see him off. They present Takumi with a cloak made of maple silk. Touched, he promises to treasure it. Paypek notices Takumi's deep bond with the villagers. One of his guards, Heath, is moved to tears, while another, Real, teases him for acting like an old man. Paypek introduces them as the Lion Fang adventuring party, and Takumi realizes they're his escorts. The group asks Takumi about his luggage, and he mentions he has a pet spider. When they peek inside, Maple surprisingly warms up to their third member, Bogar, making the rest jealous. Amid the laughter, Paypek asks if Takumi has more potions for sale. But before he can respond, the carriage suddenly halts. They're ambushed by goblins. The Lion Fang members spring into action, excited to deal with the monsters. Takumi is terrified. This is his first real encounter with goblins. Paypek reassures him that it's a common danger for merchants. The party defeats the goblins, though Real notes it took longer than expected. 3 days later, they finally arrive in Bolton, a city in the Barkula Kingdom. Takumi is overwhelmed by how different it is from the village. He heads to the Adventurers Valkyries Guild with the Lion Fang to report the completed escort mission. Takumi tells the receptionist he wants to join the Alchemists Guild, but she whispers that there's no official branch in the city. Most people just register with the Adventurers Guild and use the guild card as a general ID. It only remains valid if the holder completes at least one quest a month. Takumi registers both himself and Maple. The receptionist is shocked to see such a dangerous pet, but processes it anyway. Later, Takumi visits Paypek's headquarters to sell his potions. Paypek offers to buy everything for around 7 million yen. Takumi is thrilled, though Paypek admits he's underpaying a bit since Takumi is still unknown in the market. Suspicious but trusting his gut, Takumi decides to accept the deal. Paypek then recommends a rental house with a built-in workshop, perfect for an alchemist. Takumi is surprised when they reach the place. It's a mansion. He jokes that it must be haunted, but Thomas, Paypek's assistant, assures him it's not. While exploring the city, Takumi smells a horrible stench. Thomas explains that nobles use ancient magical purifiers from dungeons to manage sewage, but commoners can't afford them. Occasionally, priests are hired to clean it, but mostly people just endure the smell. The next day, Takumi moves into his mansion and gets to work building a toilet. Using materials from Paypek's company and his magic, he successfully purifies the waste system, leveling up both his alchemy and light magic in the process. Exhausted, he drinks a potion to recover. Just then, he hears a scream. Paypek has been caught in Maple's web, but to everyone's surprise, Paypek finds it cozy rather than threatening. Takumi still apologizes, and Paypek shrugs it off. He's far more interested in the toilet, amazed by its cleanliness and functionality. He asks Takumi if he can use light magic. Remembering Martha's warning, Takumi begs him to keep it a secret. Paypek agrees, under one condition. Takumi must make 100 more toilets. Overwhelmed, Takumi thinks of hiring help. Paypek suggests getting a slave, as slave contracts are sealed by magic, ensuring secrecy. They also provide reliable household help and protection. Paypek also explains that Takumi's affinity for light magic means he's chosen by the Church of Divine Light, the dominant religious power in the Holy Empire of Sidonia. But Takumi knows the church exploits light magic users, so they must keep his identity secret. Takumi is reluctant to use slaves, but he acknowledges the workload.